Pension funds are down and education funding may go down too. We'll talk about it next on Capitol View. Welcome to Capitol View, the program where we talk about state issues, sometimes federal issues, and how they just might affect your life. I'm Bernie Schoenburg from the State Journal-Register. We've got an intimate show today, but a lot to talk about. Ray Long is here, a veteran reporter at the State House, now the State House reporter for the Chicago Tribune for these many years. Little experience with the Associated Press, Peoria Journal-Star, you name it, Ray's been there. And thanks for being here today.
Good to be here, Bernie.
You know, the legislature's been taking a break in Illinois, but the problems have not yet subsided. One of those problems came out in a new report from the pension systems that they are actually down a little money in the last year. Can you give us a little review of where that's at? Right.
One of the things we saw this week was that Illinois Auditor General Bill Holland put out a snapshot of where the pensions were as of June 30th, and it showed that the assets of the pensions had gone down approximately $1.5 billion. So we're talking about a 39 to 40% funding ratio of all five systems together. There's, of course, the state employees, the rank and file employees, the judges, the General Assembly, the state universities, and the teachers outside of Chicago. And so this is the worst funded pension system overall in the nation. And the assets are worse, and it's mainly because of the market conditions. They didn't get the kind of bump in the markets that you might have expected when the Dow's up at the 13,000 level and more. But this is just one more problem that Illinois faces, and you have to take into consideration that in some cases, for example, the teachers' pension system had made 24% gain a year ago, but they only got like a percentage point gain this last time. So, you know, it kind of goes up and down with the market. The asset thing is something that could come back. But the overall picture, of course, is that the debt is somewhere around $96 billion. And
that's, of course, what we're talking about. And when you said, what percentage was that you said? Was it
39 to 40%?
39 to 40%. Now that means of all the money they'll need for, you know, long term, they've only got that much. But this doesn't mean anybody's not getting a pension check anytime soon.
Yeah, that's correct. There hasn't been a failure to deliver, if you will, on the pension checks, and that won't happen in anytime soon, and probably won't ever happen, period. But the problem is when you're dishing out dough, then you've also got to be bringing it in too, or your overall assets go down. And sometimes they've had to sell some of their portfolio to make the
cash
payments.
Flow.
Right, exactly, for cash flow. Now, what we've seen here is a situation where when you view the overall pension unfunded liability, which is in some quarters called debt, that is how much money, if you had it 100% funded, that's how much money would be needed to pump into that. That's why we have this big debate right now as to what to do about that. We're the worst funded. Let's get it funded. Let's figure out how to fund it. And nobody has really come up with that right equation yet.
And of course, part of the political battle here is that many of the solutions, even though the state didn't adequately put its part of the money in all these years, and they had employees making their contributions as required by law, they're now saying that the benefits that the employees have received have to change. You know, that they want employees to either take maybe less in insurance or coverage, or, well, which may be a separate little issue. Not little if it's if it's your issue, but you know, maybe not get your 3% cost of living increases each year that compound on each other and really jack up the costs over time. But then, of course, the unions argue we'll take you to court because that's diminishing our benefit, and the Constitution of the state of Illinois says you can't diminish the retirement benefit. So, has there been any word after the legislature adjourned and the new legislature was sworn in at the beginning of January. This was one piece of business pension reform in general that was left undone. Any word on if the parties are any closer to a solution for when they come back in late January, early February?
Well, they say they want to do it quickly, but what else are they going to say, actually? Now, Senate President Cullerton introduced Senate Bill 1, his four-system overhaul of the pensions. That's the one that would do the choice that you talked about,
yeah,
the option where you could have a smaller cost of living increase than the regular 3%, or you could, and you'd get to keep your health care under that scenario, or you could keep it at 3% and forget your health care. Now, that is less of a problem once you hit
2014 and Obamacare?
Well,
or age 65 and Medicare.
Medicare for sure, and Obamacare is another whole piece of the equation that has to be calculated out. But for certain employees, there is going to be this choice if that plan went into place. Cullerton is very adamant that there has to be this type of choice. He says that makes it constitutional. His end around the Constitution. Now, the other kind of rival plan, if you will, is the one that has arisen from the rank and file lawmakers in the House. That's led by Elaine Nekritz, Northbrook, a Republican, that's suburban Chicago, and she has put together a plan that calls for a variety of things. Initially at the end of the year, they were talking about a freeze of COLAs for a few years, maybe up to 6 years or so. But in the new plan, the freeze doesn't appear to be in there, and so there's still a lot of things that need to be worked out there, but they would be also asking for contributions of 1% more from employees the first year of this kicks in, and a second 1% for a total of 2% from employees in the second year. So it's asking the unions to give some too. Now the unions have said, we're willing to give, but we want to guarantee that there is going to be funding, because the whole problem, the whole reason we're in here, at least a major part of the reason that we're in here, is because the legislature and the governor over the years and over the decades really have shorted the pension payments that they should have made to the system.
Okay, Daniel Biss is another one of the sponsors.
Daniel Biss.
He was in the House as a Democrat, so you're saying it's a bipartisan. Nekritz, you said?
Nekritz is a Democrat.
Oh, you said Republican earlier. You meant Democrat,
I misspoke,
right? That's what I was checking.
Okay, well, that's why you're here.
Got it. Okay,
Good
so they are, but there are some Republicans that stood up with them when they announced it, so they showed that there's a potential for bipartisan support.
Right. Okay. And Biss now is in the Senate. So Elaine Nekritz, a Democrat, has introduced her bill again in the House, and Biss has introduced a companion bill in the Senate too. So we have still these kind of rival plans.
You don't know how hard it is for me to contradict you on anything, right? Because you know so much. So.
Oh yeah, right.
But it was a slip. That's
okay.
Fine. Okay.
Now it's your turn to talk.
Well, I need your help further, because there were also, because you're better on the budget, there were also the administration now, with as many budget problems as we had, the Quinn administration just in the last few days put out its long-term budget projections over a number of years, and that showed, and I think it was based on no changes to the pension plan right now, that things like education is going to get $400 million less, even in this time of school districts struggling and costs going up. So I guess they have to put it out this way, I assume, or is there some political angle when they do it that way, or can you tell?
Well, there's always politics involved in everything around here, but one of the deals is that they are required to put out a 3-year plan now. This kind of was a result or an offshoot of the crazy budgets of the Blagojevich period, and he
just said everything on its ear, didn't he? Anyway.
That's right. That's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
But the reality now is that they do a projection, and they report on these projections. And this projection suggested that money would be down, there would have to be cuts if you continue to have the same kind of pension payments. The pension payment is going to go up The current fiscal year has a pension payment of $5.2 billion, and it's going to go up another $1 billion or so in the next budget year, which starts July 1. So that's where they get this whole squeezy idea.
Right, which is the governor's mascot for why we have to fix the pension.
That's
the python's squeezing the dome and squeezing money out of all the other programs.
Right, and squeezing them speechless.
See, the governor would be so proud of me to say that for him.
That's
You're welcome, Governor Quinn.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I'll remind him of that.
Yeah, anyway, the squeeze is actually shown by this 3-year plan that many state programs will actually lose money, which means possibly more layoffs or program cuts, or I guess usually those go hand in hand.
Well, right. They won't say how many layoffs, if any. There's another figure in that preliminary plan that said about $265 million would be cut from various government services. Those range from the General Assembly to various agency budgets, but there would be pain in almost every area except for health care for the poor, which took a big cut last time, and for corrections, which is probably going to be flat under this scenario. Now, it can all change when Quinn introduces his budget, so this is just where we are in this snapshot. And what the legislature will do. Will it make any difference that Democrats in the last election have just won and supermajorities in both houses? Or, I mean, will that make it any easier for this Democratic governor, or is there such a disconnect between this governor and the legislative branch that it won't make that much difference and they'll still fight with him over every dollar? Well, we have this unusual situation here that everybody is aware of. The big dog is not the governor here in Illinois. It's Mike Madigan, the Speaker of the House, and he is the one who really controls the action there. And Quinn works around that and works in tandem with him when he can. And so the short answer, now that I've already given you a long answer, is not too bad. is I don't know that it will make that much difference. The Republicans will stand up now and say, you don't need our votes on these tough issues. One of Speaker Madigan's pushes has been, for example, with the pension changes, he wanted to make sure it was bipartisan. Right, get some Republican votes on there so the other party can't use it and say they did everything bad to you. Right. Well, you saw what happened with the tax increase. For example, in early 2011, they came in January, all 60 votes in the House, all 30 votes in the Senate were Democratic. Democratic governor signed it. That's what we have now. That was used in the campaigns, although what was interesting was when they redrew the district lines, they drew them in a way that there were only a few real contested races that issue came up. Okay, well, we'll see where all that goes. Of course, the major work of a legislative session is always getting the state budget done. Something else to veer into talk radio sphere, because everybody loves this issue for a few days now anyway, because the president has just talked about it, and it's already been made by a federal appeals court in Chicago an issue for the Illinois legislature. Okay, gun control. Yeah. And after the terrible shootings in the school in Connecticut. Even before that, there was a federal appeals court panel in Chicago that ordered within 6 months the Illinois legislature had to approve some sort of law to let ordinary citizens carry concealed weapons. Right. Then you had Sandy Hook. Then you had the president calling for an assault weapons ban. Even before that, you had our governor calling for some use of this discussion for an assault weapons ban. You have Mayor Emanuel in Chicago who wants tighter restrictions on guns. Right. And you have these regional differences where Democrats and Republicans, many of them, most of them in downstate areas where hunting is kind of more like are it's a little tougher to breathe, especially in the old days with the smog. You know, you have gun people downstate, and you have in the city and suburbs more people who think gun control is the right way to go. So any predictions on where this will go other than into continuing acrimony on the ornate floors of our House and Senate? Yeah, I think what there will be an attempt to do is find a concealed carry proposal that is very similar to the one that Representative Brandon Phelps had last session. And he's, of course, a Southern Illinois Democrat. Right. He's a Southern Illinois Democrat. pro-gun rights person who has pushed concealed carry for a long time. He had put in many restrictions and called for things like training, etc., that were of the nature that he even thought they were too restrictive.
As far as I know, one of those restrictions is even if you are a business and you say, I don't want guns in my business, you can just put up a sign and people can't bring a gun in your business. Because Representative Raymond Poe from Springfield had mentioned that he could go with these restrictions. So no schools, no theaters, no stadiums. You know, it would be concealed carry light.
Yeah,
really.
Churches, etc. And so there is that one out there. Now, a lot of gun rights people say, well, you know, we got this court decision on our side, let's just strip all these restrictions out, etc. But they never were able to get the 60 votes in the House that they needed to pass this. I'm not sure if they could have gotten the 30 votes in the Senate. The Senate might have been an easier road. But if you leave these restrictions in and you have a federal judge saying you have to have something, then there might be an opening for some of the anti-gun folks to say, okay, if we got to have something, let's have one that's
like
very
that.
restrictive. But we'd also like to have a ban on assault weapons too. So if you want to dance, let's do something.
I wonder
like
though
this.
if the court decision plus some of the national discussion doesn't. I know that what if you want to call them pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment folks, they will say, well, if you restrict it from schools and theaters where we've had bad shootings, then those once again become gun-free zones, which means only people who are bad and bring in guns have guns, and nobody can stop them. So you know, you get in. I hear the arguments already on the floor of the House and Senate.
And I think a lot of these arguments are legitimate arguments and made with passion.
Lots of passion.
and made with a lot of legitimacy on all sides. However, there's a question here as to on one side is this our America that we have here? A lot of people are going to say, is my America the America that would want to have
guns everywhere,
and guns in schools, etc., versus others who think that they should be more accessible?
With President Obama, an Illinoisan, if we might remember that, coming out with his very strong anti-gun legislation proposals and the executive orders that he's signing, is it about, well, they're trying to do it in both ways, but lower clip size and all of that. Will the feds maybe preempt what Illinois is trying to do anyway this year? I guess nobody knows.
Right, nobody really does know, and there may be some things that Illinois could do that the feds won't be able to do. We don't know for sure that an assault weapon ban can get through both houses in D.C., but I think right now, beyond the tragedies, the time to strike if you're in Obama's position, and I'm not taking his position, but politically.
Right, as soon after the school shooting
soon
as
after
possible.
that, and while he's got a divided House, where he has the chamber divided over the fiscal cliff. He's got sort of the Tea Party wing, if you will, isolated on the fiscal cliff issue. If Obama could drive a wedge through there now, he may be able to get some kind of coalition of Republicans who are more moderate and Democrats to push some of his issues.
Okay, I've talked about it on a recent show, but another big issue facing our own legislature, which was stalled again in the lame duck session when the sponsors hoped that it would go somewhere, was gay marriage, because Illinois, of course, has civil unions but not gay marriage. Just any thoughts on some predictions? Well, with all these Democrats coming in, again, they're from diverse areas of the state and they come from different kind of cultural backgrounds. But do you think there's a chance that will go quickly and become the law of the state? Or?
Well, that's got a big media push on, and what I mean by that is paid media. PR people are getting paid by big backers of that law to push this as an issue. That's the reason I think that it showed up in the lame duck section. I don't think that the sponsors were totally committed for a long time that they were going to do that
at that time.
Right, until there was this big push put on. Now, I think the character of the two chambers could have changed enough with the supermajority for Democrats in both chambers that there is a good chance that that could pass in Illinois.
Interesting. And of course, on the Republican side, and perhaps one of the more interesting occurrences during the recent debate was that Pat Brady, the state chairman of the Illinois Republican Party, was making calls seeking votes for gay marriage, and he's framing it as, well, we're the state of Lincoln, so this is the last form of discrimination. We shouldn't be against it. Look at the last election. We need to change. And some conservative members of the party, Jim Oberweis is a new state senator from the suburbs, and of course people know his name because he ran statewide a few times. You know, he's one who's been quoted as saying Pat Brady should now go as chairman. Yeah. Any predictions on if Pat Brady finishes his term as chairman of the state Republican Party, given this issue, or if, you know, other voices will come through?
You know, I'm not always big on predictions, but I think that he's in midterm. I think it would be difficult politically to dislodge him in midterm. He has been a strong voice for the Republicans on many issues, and he's out there on this one in a...
Yes, I was very surprised when I heard he had done this, just given what you generally hear from the Republican Party on this issue.
Right, but I think it's an interesting political maneuver, too, because of the effort to make the Republican Party more appealable to a bigger tent. You had that, and you saw in the Illinois legislature the passage of driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants who are coming in here, and you saw a lot of Republican votes for that too. So you may see more efforts to try to broaden their base.
Let's see where that goes. Speaking of the base, and of course we always talk about elections in Illinois, there are so many. And we are already kind of into the next governor's race, which, because I think this fall, by the end of 2013, people will have filed for the 2014 primaries and then 2014 races. So we're expecting Governor Quinn to run again. Democratic side, there's speculation about Bill Daley, the former Commerce Secretary and White House Chief of Staff, brother of the previous Mayor Daley, and Lisa Madigan, the Attorney General, who hasn't given a big indication if she wants to do this, but she has money in the bank. Any thoughts on is there going to be a Democratic primary?
Well, I think it sure would be an interesting moment here in Illinois. Of course, the last time there was a big blowout, we saw Dan Hines and Pat Quinn, but we also saw Mike Hallett go up against Dan Walker and defeat him, and then the Republicans actually won that next time.
Jim Thompson started the 26-year Republican run.
Right, so you got to be careful about something like that. Now, Lisa Madigan has great name recognition, and she has about $3.6 million in the bank. Quinn has about $1 million, but you can raise a lot when you're governor. This is one of those questions that we'll see. If say all three of them got in, it would be a real Donnybrook, because you'd be splitting up what's left of the machine vote in Chicago.
With the Madigan and Daley.
Right.
Those are big names.
Right. Yes. right. And so we'll see.
And Bill Daley he may be in a freer position now, but he has flirted with running before and has never pulled the trigger. So we'll see if he's now ready with his brother out of office.
Yeah, he's making the noises that this time I'm serious. But,
we'll find out where it goes. On the Republican side, Central Illinois, one of the U.S. representatives representing Springfield, Aaron Schock, is in the mix, talking about, he now is publicly saying, I'm interested maybe in running for governor or U.S. House. Not closing the door on other things, but those are the two he's looking at, which is interesting. He's only 31 years old. He's just had a little public spat with a guy named Bruce Rauner, who is a big money, kind of at least almost billionaire, hundreds of millions he claims to have made. Bruce Rauner in the finance world from Chicago, who has pushed education reform with his money in Illinois and is very conservative, liberty-based, market-based economy, and is talking about running as a Republican. And of course, Dan Rutherford, the state treasurer, and
Bill Brady.
And Bill Brady, of course, another senator, a state senator representing Bloomington or Springfield and from Bloomington, comes into North Springfield. He's talking. Any idea? Well, they could have a spirited race, but their party really, they want to do what they didn't do last time, which is get somebody who can win, given all the problems the state has.
Right. I think one thing that Quinn was able to do last time, once he did win the primary, was once he got past the crazy Scott Lee Cohen debacle.
Oh, yeah, as the guy
as
who won.
lieutenant.
Right.
He was able to pull together Sheila Simon as his running mate, and they ran as a decent team. The reality here is now the parties will choose to run who their running mate is this time, rather than
that's
an
right.
election.
New rules after that.
New rules, and so we'll see pairings come together, and I think that is one thing that could help Republicans, because
they're going to have to decide on a team, or else
right.
it's going to be catch as catch can, and who knows what happens.
Right, but they
point.
also should get it together and decide who they want in a ticket here, so they can put together a strong ticket. The Democrats should do the same.
Very interesting. A couple minutes left in the show. This is unfortunate, disquieting. We haven't lost her. She's a kind of an icon in Illinois. But Dawn Clark-Netsch, we just found out in the last couple days, is suffering from ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, which over a period of time steals your breath away, unfortunately. And Dawn is 86. Former state senator, I think first woman statewide officer when she was comptroller, ran for governor as the Democratic nominee against Jim Edgar in '86.
94.
And 94, that's right.
We're even now.
I'm reading, that's right. Thank you. And is just, you know, a very smart legal mind, and yet, you know, has a great number of admirers. Your thought, I mean, certainly our thoughts go out to her as she follows this year.
No matter whether you believe in her politics or not, you cannot argue that she is one of the sharp legal minds of Illinois. And she had a trailblazing career. She was a legal counsel back.
For Governor Kerner.
That's correct,
that's
yes. And it really is something that she has been someone looked up to as kind of an ethical compass over the years, and she has still held a role as
and she's still working on ethics for the state.
Right.
Yeah, Ray, I think we can both agree we wish her the best. And on that note, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Capitol View.